Ladies and gentlemen, there is a form of stealing happening every day quietly, invisibly, and dangerously. It doesn't involve breaking into homes. It doesn't require weapons. It doesn't even happen at night. This form of theft is called energy theft. Electricity, the force that powers our hospitals, lights up our schools, and keeps our communities alive, is being taken without permission. But this is not just a legal problem. This is a moral problem. It is a lack of discipline, a betrayal of trust, and a failure to see the consequences of one's actions. To take what is not yours, even when unseen, is to carry a weight you cannot measure. Energy theft is not just stealing power. It is stealing opportunity. It is stealing progress. It is stealing from your neighbors, from your country, and from yourself. We must ask, how can we speak of building a better future if we continue to act dishonestly in the present? Just as the body must be trained, the mind must be disciplined. It is only through awareness, responsibility, and collective effort that we can stop this silent crime. Let us walk the honest path. Let us protect the power that protects us. Let us stop energy theft, not because we are told to, but because it is right. In the modern world, not all theft happens with noise or conflict. Some of the most damaging acts occur in silence, hidden from the eyes of most, but felt across entire communities. Energy theft is one such act. It is quiet, often unnoticed, and yet it leaves a deep scar on the systems that sustain our lives. Because of its hidden nature, many underestimate its consequences or brush it aside as a minor offense. But this invisibility is what makes it so dangerous. When a wrong is hidden, it escapes correction. When it becomes common, it begins to seem acceptable. Electricity flows without color, scent, or sound. It does not complain when it is taken unlawfully. There is no alarm that rings immediately, and no witness that cries out. This creates the illusion that energy theft is harmless, but that is only an illusion. Like water leaking from a cracked jar, the theft slowly empties the reservoir of resources meant for all. Every stolen unit of electricity adds strain to an already burdened system. Every illegal connection increases the risk of overload, fire, and infrastructure damage. In many communities, especially in developing regions, power grids are fragile. They are carefully balanced systems, designed to serve the needs of homes, schools, clinics, and businesses. When energy is stolen, that balance is broken. Power outages become more frequent. Equipment wears out faster. Emergency services may fail during critical times. In short, the harm does not stay isolated with the thief. It spreads outward, affecting people who have never committed a single wrong. There is also a spiritual cost. To steal without being seen may offer a false sense of victory, but deep inside, even the person committing the theft carries the weight of dishonesty. A mind that has learned to justify small wrongs is slowly preparing to excuse larger ones. And a society that tolerates the invisible theft of energy begins to tolerate other hidden harms, corruption, cheating, and silence in the face of injustice. The erosion of values always starts quietly, just like the theft it ignores. Another layer of the harm lies in the message it sends to the next generation. Children observe more than they are told. When they see adults taking electricity without paying, they do not only learn how to do it, they learn that it is acceptable. Thus, the theft becomes not just a technical issue, but a cultural one. A habit passed down, a shortcut embraced, a cycle repeated. We cannot build strong future citizens while feeding them weak examples. Furthermore, when energy theft becomes widespread, the cost is not simply a matter of missing kilowatts. The government or utility companies must make up for the loss. That compensation often comes from higher prices for paying customers, reduced services, or deferred maintenance. In the end, the honest end up paying for the dishonest, a reversal of fairness that breeds resentment and social division. There is also risk to life. Illegal connections are frequently made without proper safety standards. Exposed wires, overloaded circuits, and unprotected installations become silent killers. Fires break out. Children are electrocuted. Entire neighborhoods are left in darkness after system failures. These tragedies are not accidents. They are the predictable outcomes of negligence disguised as necessity. And yet, many who steal energy claim they have no choice. They cite poverty, lack of access, or government failure. These are real issues, and they deserve solutions. But stealing electricity does not solve injustice. It only adds another form of it. True empowerment comes not from unlawful taking, but from rightful claiming, through community organization, legal reforms, and shared responsibility. Only then can we move from silent harm to honest healing. When we speak of laws, we often think in terms of rules, punishments, and Esquenes enforcement. But the deepest foundation of any law is not fear, it is principle. A law exists not only to control people, but to reflect what is right and wrong within a society. Energy theft, though punishable by law, is more than just a violation of regulation. It is a violation of ethics. When someone steals electricity, they are not merely breaking a rule. They are breaking a code of mutual respect and shared responsibility. What separates humans from animals is our ability to live in harmony through shared understanding. Morality is the invisible structure that holds a community together when no one is watching. Legal systems can monitor behavior, but it is moral character that governs intention. A society in which people only follow the law out of fear of punishment is a fragile society. It survives, but it does not flourish. It is morality that teaches a person to do the right thing even when there is no threat, no camera, no consequence in sight. Energy theft is often done in secret because the one committing it knows it is wrong. This knowing is proof of morality, even if it is ignored. But every time someone chooses to act against that inner voice, the voice becomes softer. The conscience becomes quieter. Eventually, the person may no longer feel shame, and that is more dangerous than being caught, to lose the sense of what is right and wrong altogether. It may seem like a small thing to tap into a power line without paying. It may not look as serious as robbery or fraud. But morality is not measured by the size of the act. It is measured by the clarity of intention. To take what is not yours, knowing that it causes harm to others, is an act that weakens your own spirit. No matter how you justify it, whether through need, anger, or convenience, the moral cost remains. There is also the matter of trust. Every social system is built on layers of unseen agreements. The shopkeeper trusts the customer will pay. The neighbor trusts you will respect their boundary. The utility company trusts that users will honor their part of the exchange. When someone steals electricity, they break this invisible chain of trust, and broken trust is not easy to repair. It does not just affect the thief, it creates suspicion, distance, and decay within the community. Moreover, a moral failure spreads more rapidly than a legal one. If someone is caught breaking a law, others may avoid the act to escape punishment. But if someone commits a wrong and others see it go unchallenged, they may begin to believe the act is normal. What was once shameful becomes common. The moral compass of the community begins to drift, and soon people no longer ask, "Is it right?" They ask only, "Can I get away with it?" The spiritual discipline of life teaches us that every action leaves an imprint, not just on the world, but on ourselves. To act morally is to strengthen your inner structure. To act immorally is to weaken it, slowly, like termites hollowing out wood from the inside. Energy theft, though it seems external, is in fact an internal failure first. A failure to uphold one's own values, to honor one's agreements, to stand firmly even when the path is difficult. Those who walk the moral path do not always find it easy, but they find it peaceful. It is better to live with little and be clean in conscience than to take with deceit and carry unseen burdens. The law may judge actions, but only the individual can judge their own heart. When we recognize energy theft as a moral failure, we move beyond blaming systems and start correcting ourselves, not because we are forced to, but because we choose to. Electricity is not a luxury granted to a few. It is a shared resource meant to uplift the many. It flows silently through cables, lights up homes, powers schools, and sustains hospitals. It is a force that connects us all, even when we do not see it. Yet despite its invisible nature, it demands respect, not because it is powerful, but because it is shared. What is shared must be protected. What serves all must not be claimed by one. In every city, town, and village, electricity is generated through the collective effort of many people. Engineers, technicians, planners, and workers dedicate their skill to build and maintain the systems that bring power to our doors. Behind every light switch is a long chain of cooperation. And within that cooperation lies an unspoken agreement that each person will take only what is theirs and contribute their fair share to keep the system alive. When someone steals electricity, they are not just taking power. They are breaking that silent agreement. They are choosing to benefit from a system they have not supported, and in doing so, they add weight to the burden of others. Those who pay their bills end up compensating for the ones who do not. Those who wait for legal connections are delayed by those who bypass the process. The fairness of the system begins to erode. Shared resources only remain effective when they are treated with care. Consider a public well in a village. If every villager takes what they need and leaves enough for others, the well serves the whole community. But if even a few begin to draw more than their share or pollute the water, the resource is damaged and all suffer. Electricity is no different. Its value is in its fairness, and its fairness is maintained by honesty. In many developing areas, access to electricity is not yet universal. There are families who still wait in the dark, children who study under candlelight, and clinics that run on generators. When electricity is stolen, the system loses the capacity to expand. Funds that could be used to extend access are instead spent on repairs, loss recovery, or enforcement. In stealing electricity, one may believe they are solving their own problem, but in reality, they are prolonging the struggle of others. This is why electricity must be understood not just as a utility, but as a communal gift. It belongs to the people, all people, and therefore must be managed with discipline and gratitude. To misuse it is not only a technical fault, it is a spiritual disconnection. One begins to live outside the rhythm of shared living, taking without giving, receiving without gratitude. In martial arts, one learns that power must always be balanced by respect. To misuse strength is to dishonor the training. The same applies here. Electricity is a kind of power, and using it without contribution dishonors the system that makes it possible. Respecting the grid, paying for usage, reporting faults, these are not small acts. They are ways of showing that we understand the value of what we are given. And so we must remind ourselves and teach others that electricity is not owned, it is offered. It is a gift from the labor of many, meant for the good of all. To treat it with care is to honor that gift. To take it unfairly is to steal from the very people we live beside. Only when we recognize electricity as a shared blessing will we begin to guard it with the seriousness it deserves. Every action, no matter how small, sends out ripples. Like a stone dropped into a still pond, its effects spread far beyond the point of contact. Energy theft may seem like a single act, a private decision made in isolation, but its consequences are wide and long-lasting. The person who taps illegally into a power source may believe they are solving a temporary problem. Yet in doing so, they may unknowingly create a chain of damage that affects not only systems, but lives. There is a tendency among some to separate action from outcome, to believe that if no one sees the act, it has no real impact. But this is a misunderstanding of how the world works. Just because the consequences are not immediate does not mean they are not real. A spark that goes unnoticed may still start a fire. A leak left unrepaired may still flood a room. In the same way, energy theft slowly corrodes the reliability of the power system, draining what was meant to be sustained. In rural areas, for example, where power grids are often stretched thin, illegal connections can cause voltage fluctuations, equipment failures, and dangerous overloads. The result is blackouts, sometimes lasting hours, even days, and during those blackouts, lives are disrupted. Businesses close, medicines spoil, students lose learning time. Entire households are forced into darkness, not because of their own actions, but because of someone else's. This is the unseen harm of a seemingly small act. It is easy to think, what harm does one connection do? But energy systems are interconnected. They operate on balance and prediction. When unauthorized users connect, they upset that balance. Maintenance teams are forced to divert attention to illegal connections instead of improving infrastructure. This slows down progress for everyone. What was once a system built for growth becomes a system stuck in reaction, always fixing, never advancing. There is also a financial consequence. Electricity providers do not absorb the cost of stolen power. That cost is passed on. Bills become higher for paying customers. Budget allocations for rural electrification and upgrades get reduced. Investors become hesitant to fund further development. In this way, the consequence of one dishonest act grows quietly into the suffering of many honest people. It is not simply about lost electricity. It is about lost trust, lost opportunity, and lost momentum. And consequences are not always external. They often live within the person who acts without integrity. Each time someone chooses to take what is not rightfully theirs, they chip away at their own inner structure. They become more comfortable with shortcuts, more resistant to correction, and less sensitive to right and wrong. These internal shifts may not be seen by others, but they shape the course of a life. A person who avoids responsibility today is likely to avoid it tomorrow, until it becomes a pattern that is hard to break. The same principle is taught in the practice of discipline, in martial arts, meditation, or any form of mindful training. One learns that action and consequence are inseparable. A lazy movement leads to injury. A lapse in focus leads to failure. And so it is in life. Energy theft is not a singular mistake, it is the beginning of a decline. And just as no structure collapses in a single moment, no community breaks apart from one theft. But repeated, unchallenged, and accepted, the consequences become too heavy to ignore. Therefore, we must train ourselves to see beyond the moment, to look past the silence that follows the act and understand the impact it leaves behind. We must know that what we do or allow has weight. When we understand that every action carries consequence, we begin to live with greater clarity, more responsibility, and a deeper respect for the systems that hold our lives together. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many see it as strictness, punishment, or the ability to follow rules under pressure. But true discipline begins not with external control, but with internal alignment. At the core of this alignment is honesty. Honesty with oneself, honesty in action, honesty in intention. Without honesty, discipline becomes hollow, a performance rather than a principle. And where energy theft occurs, what we see is not a lack of law, but a lack of honest discipline. To be disciplined is to make choices based not on ease or gain, but on what is right. Honesty is the compass that allows us to navigate that path. It is what keeps our actions true, even when no one is watching. A person who is disciplined in the way of truth will not cheat, even when they know they won't be caught. They will not steal even when it seems like a solution, because they understand that doing the right thing is not a matter of convenience, it is a matter of character. When someone justifies stealing electricity because of hardship or necessity, they are not practicing discipline, they are avoiding it. It takes no strength to take what is not yours, but it does take great strength to endure difficulty without compromising your values. That is the discipline of the spirit, the ability to stand in honesty even when the world tempts you to bend. The real question is not, what do I need? But, what kind of person am I becoming by how I choose to meet that need? In the teachings of mindful living, one learns that discipline is not forced, it is cultivated. It grows from repeated choices, shaped by intention and guided by reflection. When a person lies once, it becomes easier to lie again. When a person steals once, the next theft seems smaller. But the reverse is also true. Each time we choose honesty, we strengthen the roots of discipline, and over time, those roots grow into a tree of unshakable character. Electricity is not just a technical service. It is a system that depends on trust, structure, and balance. When someone connects illegally, they are choosing to bypass this structure. It may seem clever or necessary in the moment, but it is dishonest. And every dishonest act weakens the ability to live with dignity. You cannot build a house of peace on a foundation of lies. True stability, whether in a home, a society, or the self, begins with truth. There is also a danger in repeated dishonesty. When we become too comfortable with shortcuts, we stop believing in the value of effort. We stop growing. A disciplined person wakes up early not because it is easy, but because they know it prepares them for life. They eat well, train, study, and serve, not because someone forces them, but because they understand that freedom comes through structure. Likewise, honesty in how we use energy is part of that same structure. It shows respect for the systems that support us. We must also remember that discipline is not rigid, it is responsive. A disciplined society listens to the needs of its people and seeks solutions that are fair and sustainable. But no solution is possible without honesty on all sides. If people continue to steal electricity while demanding better services, they are speaking from contradiction. The foundation of real change is not complaint, it is integrity. Only when both the people and the system act with honesty can progress take root. So, when we talk about stopping energy theft, we are not just asking for obedience to law. We are calling for a return to discipline, the kind of discipline that begins in the heart and expresses itself through honest action. To walk that path is not easy. It may require sacrifice, patience, and the courage to choose right over quick reward. But it is the only path that leads to true respect, both for others and for oneself. A small wrong is easy to ignore. It may even be invisible to others. A quiet act, a single wire tapped, a meter bypassed, it does not shake the earth or draw the eye. And so it is easy to excuse. Easy to say, it's just this once, or it's only a little. But the nature of wrongdoing is that it grows not only in size, but in impact. When a small wrong is repeated again and again, it no longer remains small. It becomes part of a pattern. And patterns, once they take root, are harder to break than single acts. This is the nature of habits. They are built one choice at a time. A person does not become corrupt in a day. A society does not decay overnight. It begins with small compromises, small exceptions to what is right. One person connects illegally, then another sees and follows. Then others stop questioning, and soon what was once wrong becomes common, and what was once common becomes normalized. That is how small wrongs turn into large problems. In energy theft, this is clearly visible. When just a few people steal electricity, the system absorbs the loss. But when many do it, the grid becomes overloaded, services fail, and the cost for recovery rises. What began as a few stolen kilowatts now becomes millions lost. Equipment fails more often. Neighborhoods experience longer outages. And utility companies cannot keep up with maintenance or expand service to those still without access. A small wrong, left uncorrected, grows into collective harm. Even worse is the erosion of moral clarity. When wrong becomes widespread, people stop seeing it as wrong. They say everyone does it, or there's no other way. Justification replaces judgment. And once that shift happens, it becomes even harder to speak truth. Those who remain honest feel isolated. Those who try to correct the problem are met with resistance or even hostility. This is how entire communities become trapped in cycles of dysfunction, not because of a single large failure, but because of countless small ones repeated over time. In discipline training, whether in martial arts, meditation, or daily living, we are taught to be mindful of the small things. A slight misalignment in the body leads to injury. A skipped day in practice breaks the rhythm. Discipline is not built on grand gestures, it is built on consistency. Likewise, the decline of discipline does not begin with massive collapse. It begins with daily neglect. Daily excuses, daily dishonesty, what is not corrected accumulates. Energy theft is not only a technical problem, it is a symptom of accumulated neglect. Of rules ignored, of behaviors unchecked, of habits allowed to deepen. And the longer a problem continues unchallenged, the more difficult it becomes to uproot. A weed is easy to pull when it first appears, but if left to grow, its roots harden and it grips the soil. The same is true of moral failures. They deepen with time, and the longer they are tolerated, the stronger they become. This is why awareness must begin early. Correction must be firm, but also compassionate. People must be taught that a small wrong is not harmless. It is the seed of something larger. And when we teach this not through force, but through example, reflection, and dialogue, we give people the tools to stop a bad habit before it becomes a crisis. It is far easier to guide a young plant than to break a hardened branch. So let us not ignore the small acts. Let us not dismiss energy theft because it seems minor. Let us understand that the great problems of our time are rarely caused by a single act, but by thousands of small ones performed in silence, justified by need, and allowed to grow without question. In recognizing this, we begin to reclaim our responsibility not just to prevent harm, but to build a culture where integrity is planted in the small things and nurtured every day. Integrity is often spoken of as a personal trait, a private virtue of being honest, consistent, and morally upright. But integrity, when truly practiced, extends far beyond the self. It becomes a protective force, a kind of quiet leadership that shields the community from harm. In times of disorder, it is not the loudest voices or strongest hands that preserve peace. It is those who choose what is right, even when it is difficult. Integrity is not only about how we live, it is about how our living affects others. In the case of energy theft, integrity becomes a kind of unseen guardian. It is what keeps systems fair, services functional, and people accountable. A person of integrity will not steal electricity, not because they fear punishment, but because they understand the consequences ripple outward. They know that by paying for what they use, they support the health of the larger system. They know that their discipline is not just for them, it is a foundation upon which others depend. When integrity is widespread, the entire community benefits. There are fewer outages, faster repairs, more reliable infrastructure. Funds that would have been lost to theft or corruption can be redirected to expansion, to education, to cleaner energy solutions. A culture of honesty strengthens the grid, not just electrically, but socially. It builds trust between citizens and providers. It builds pride among people who know they are contributing to something greater than themselves. But when integrity is missing, the opposite happens. The system suffers, and so do the people. Neighbors begin to distrust each other. Services become unpredictable. Providers become stricter, more suspicious. Enforcement becomes more aggressive. And in the end, everyone loses, even the one who thought they gained something by stealing. Because what was gained in comfort was lost in community. What was taken in secret created suffering in public. We must learn to see integrity as a form of protection, like a shield we hold not just for ourselves but for others. Just as a parent protects their children by acting with responsibility, or a teacher protects their students by upholding fairness, each person can protect their community by choosing honesty. This is a deeper kind of strength, one that requires no audience, no reward, only the quiet knowledge that we are doing our part to keep the structure whole. In traditional training, warriors did not only train for battle, they trained to guard peace. Their strength was not measured only in combat, but in restraint, in respect, in doing what was right when no one else was watching. In that same spirit, modern life asks us to protect the integrity of our shared systems, the ones that bring light, water, health, and safety. We do this not by force, but by example, not through words alone, but through behavior. Children watch what adults do. Neighbors notice each other. Communities are shaped not only by laws, but by the values we live out daily. If we act with integrity, we give others permission to do the same. We build a culture where honesty is not the exception, but the norm. Where people take pride in following the rules, not in bending them, and that pride becomes a form of protection against failure, against corruption, against decline. So when we talk about stopping energy theft, we are not just talking about cables, bills, or systems. We are talking about character, about choosing to be the kind of person who protects rather than takes, who serves rather than exploits, and in doing so, becomes a living example of what it means to value not only electricity, but the people who depend on it. Integrity, then, is not just a private virtue, it is a public gift. Real change is not something we wait for. It is not something that arrives from the outside, carried by leaders, policies, or force. Real change is quiet, personal, and often unseen at first. It begins not in the world around us, but in the world within us, the decision to live differently. The moment we shift from blaming others to examining ourselves, this is where transformation is born, not in the correction of others, but in the correction of self. When we speak of energy theft, we often point to systems, authorities, or economics. We ask, why isn't the government fixing this? Or why doesn't the company do more? But what if we turned that question inward? What if the beginning of the solution was not in policy, but in personal discipline? In each person choosing to stop the cycle by refusing to participate in it, even if it costs more, even if no one notices, even if others still continue. That choice to live with integrity is not loud, but it is powerful, because from one individual, influence spreads. A parent who refuses to steal power teaches that value to their children. A neighbor who pays fairly inspires quiet respect from those who watch. A student who speaks about honesty in class becomes a seed of awareness. Real change does not require everyone to change at once. It only needs one person to act with clarity, consistently, and without waiting. Many people feel helpless in the face of social problems. They believe they are too small to make a difference. But every large fire starts from a single spark. And so does every light. One honest decision can affect a household. One household can influence a street. One street can shift the habits of an entire community. But this process cannot begin if each person is waiting for someone else to take the first step. We must become the example we are looking for. This is the principle of internal power. When you change yourself, you change how you see the world. When you act with truth, you begin to attract truth. You become less reactive, less blaming, and more focused on what can be done right now with what you have. You stop needing external permission to live well. You stop needing applause to do what is right. And when enough people think and live this way, the world around them begins to mirror that inner strength. Real change is sustainable only when it is rooted in values. Rules can be broken, systems can fail, but values, once internalized, become part of who we are. They shape our choices not because we are told, but because we believe. If we believe that honesty matters, that community matters, that energy is a shared trust, then we no longer need to be reminded. We will act from that belief again and again, even when it is difficult. In the practice of personal mastery, one is taught to clean their own space before trying to fix the world, to observe their own mind before correcting others. It is humbling, but it is also empowering, because once you realize that the first step of change is yours to take, you no longer have to wait. You no longer have to ask for permission. You can begin now. You can begin here with your choices. Your voice, your way of living. So when we say that energy theft must stop, we are not just making a call to the public. We are making a call to the individual, to the inner space of decision, to the private moment where someone chooses what is right, not because it is easy, but because it reflects the person they want to be. From that moment, real change begins, and from that beginning, the path forward reveals itself, step by step, choice by choice. So I leave you with this thought: real strength is not in how much we take, but in how much we protect. Real wisdom is not found in shortcuts, but in the courage to walk the honest path, even when no one is watching. And real change, the kind that uplifts families, transforms communities, and secures our shared future, begins not in policies or punishments, but in each one of us. Let us no longer wait for someone else to act. Let us become the example, not just in words, but in the choices we make every day. Let us stop energy theft, not just because it is illegal, but because it is harmful to our systems, to our neighbors, and to our own integrity. Every time we choose truth over convenience, honesty over excuses, we plant a seed. And if enough of us plant these seeds, a forest of responsibility and fairness will grow strong, stable, and rooted in values that cannot be stolen. Thank you. Let us walk forward with awareness, with honesty, and with the discipline to protect what belongs to all of us. A small wrong is easy to ignore. It may even be invisible to others. A quiet act, a single wire tapped, a meter bypassed. It does not shake the earth or draw the eye, and so it is easy to excuse, easy to say, it's just this once, or it's only a little. But the nature of wrongdoing is that it grows not only in size, but in impact. When a small wrong is repeated again and again, it no longer remains small. It becomes part of a pattern, and patterns, once they take root, are harder to break than single acts. This is the nature of habits. They are built one choice at a time. A person does not become corrupt in a day. A society does not decay overnight. It begins with small compromises, small exceptions to what is right. One person connects illegally, then another sees and follows, then others stop questioning, and soon what was once wrong becomes common, and what was once common becomes normalized. That is how small wrongs turn into large problems. In energy theft, this is clearly visible. When just a few people steal electricity, the system absorbs the loss. But when many do it, the grid becomes overloaded, services fail, and the cost for recovery rises. What began as a few stolen kilowatts now becomes millions lost. Equipment fails more often. Neighborhoods experience longer outages, and utility companies cannot keep up with maintenance or expand service to those still without access. A small wrong left uncorrected grows into collective harm. Even worse is the erosion of moral clarity. When wrong becomes widespread, people stop seeing it as wrong. They say, everyone does it, or there's no other way. Justification replaces judgment. And once that shift happens, it becomes even harder to speak truth. Those who remain honest feel isolated. Those who try to correct the problem are met with resistance or even hostility. This is how entire communities become trapped in cycles of dysfunction, not because of a single large failure, but because of countless small ones repeated over time. In disciplined training, whether in martial arts, meditation, or daily living, we are taught to be mindful of the small things. A slight misalignment in the body leads to injury. A skipped day in practice breaks the rhythm. Discipline is not built on grand gestures, it is built on consistency. Likewise, the decline of discipline does not begin with massive collapse. It begins with daily neglect. Daily excuses, daily dishonesty, what is not corrected accumulates. Energy theft is not only a technical problem, it is a symptom of accumulated neglect. Of rules ignored, of behaviors unchecked, of habits allowed to deepen, and the longer a problem continues unchallenged, the more difficult it becomes to uproot. A weed is easy to pull when it first appears, but if left to grow, its roots harden and it grips the soil. The same is true of moral failures. They deepen with time, and the longer they are tolerated, the stronger they become. This is why awareness must begin early, correction must be firm but also compassionate. People must be taught that a small wrong is not harmless. It is the seed of something larger. And when we teach this not through force, but through example, reflection, and dialogue, we give people the tools to stop a bad habit before it becomes a crisis. It is far easier to guide a young plant than to break a hardened branch. So let us not ignore the small acts. Let us not dismiss energy theft because it seems minor. Let us understand that the great problems of our time are rarely caused by a single act, but by thousands of small ones performed in silence, justified by need, and allowed to grow without question. In recognizing this, we begin to reclaim our responsibility, not just to prevent harm, but to build a culture where integrity is planted in the small things and nurtured every day.